The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Church, and I'll serve as your moderator for today's event. I'd like to thank everyone for joining our webinar today, How Toyota North America Ensures Its Product Compliance. Let's go ahead and get started. I would like to just say a few words about today's speakers. So today we'll be joined by James Tu, Senior Manager from Toyota North America, also Sushma Katali-Widener, our Director of Operations here at iPoint. And as mentioned earlier, my name is Mark Church. I serve as President of iPoint, and again, will serve as your moderator here today. Our presentation is scheduled to last approximately 45 minutes. At the end, we will save some time for question and answers. Please, in order to submit your question to today's speakers, just go to your GoToWebinar toolbar. There you're going to find an area called Questions, where you can go ahead and post these questions. If we can answer them during the event, we're going to do so during our Q&A session. We can also hold those questions for any offline follow-up as well. But please go ahead and use the toolbar, submit your questions, and we'll try to take as many of those today as possible. A quick look at our agenda. We'll just take a few minutes here for those of you that are new to iPoint to provide a very brief overview of our company and the applications that we offer. We'll talk a little bit about Toyota's journey powered by iPoint, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the application behind that journey, a detailed look at the compliance application. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you again. Let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about iPoint here. Next slide. At iPoint, we make software, so we are very focused on three areas of software: compliance, sustainability, and risk. These are the three areas in which our software and services are designed to help support our customers. Next slide. This software empowers companies to collect, analyze, and report all the necessary data to assess the environmental, social, and economic impacts of their products and related processes. Next slide. At iPoint, we are in business since 2001. We have just over 150 employees from approximately 17 different locations throughout North America, Europe, and Asia, serving over 250 large enterprise customers with over 51,000 companies now exchanging data through our supplier portal programs. Next slide. This is really the binding element that keeps all of our software running together. All of our data software is designed to initially collect data from the supply chain internally as well, to analyze, to assess the impacts, the relations of that data, and then ultimately to report that data. That may be to government agencies based on regulations, that may be to internal stakeholders, that may be also to your customers. And then ultimately we are making sure that this software is continually evolving to minimize the risks and to maximize the opportunities for compliance and sustainability. Last slide. All of this, as you can see underneath the building elements, really impacts us and ultimately applies to a CARE principle, which is C-A-R-E, the collect, analyze, report, and evolve. And almost all of our software typically follows this type of pattern, and it's something that we continue to build all of our software around this CARE principle. Next slide. So all of our software ultimately rolls up, the modules, the software, the applications into the iPoint suite. A lot of you are familiar with many of these applications and use in many cases more than one, from compliance to conflict minerals, the ability to do sustainability, both on a product and corporate level, and ultimately process improve efficiency, systems integration, and ongoing applications designed to make sure that we provide a full comprehensive suite of applications. Okay, next slide. At this point, I think we want to go ahead and just sum up what the suite benefits are, to reuse, link your data, to grow with your demands, to automate that process. As I mentioned earlier, consistently linking and integrating that data into other applications internally in your organization, and making sure that we're always changing and adapting to new business processes. Next slide. Okay, at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and shift over to Sushma Katali-Widener, talk a little bit about the compliance application that you'll learn a little bit more about today that drives the Toyota Avenger project. So at this point, Sushma, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And my name is Sushma Katali-Widener, and I will be continuing today's session with focus on iPoint compliance, a product within the iPoint suite. And with iPoint compliance, our focus is to enable you to manage what you measure. And today I will be covering the various aspects, benefits of the compliance tool. Next slide, please. A lot of regulations. Going back to about early 2000s, even late 90s, the initial product-related regulations started to emerge worldwide due to various, factors. And with the growth of these regulations, now every country, every region, sometimes even a local location, have their own regulation with respect to products and the processes and so on. And this is, with the need to collect data from various stakeholders, B2B, legal entities, and your supply chain, the flood of regulations is continuing to pose a challenge and an opportunity for improvement. Next slide, please. Here is a short glimpse of how the regulations have evolved in the different areas going back to early 2000s. There are various regulations that are out there in the areas of battery, climate change, packaging, product safety, energy, waste, and substances. Traditionally, initially, with the onset of the regulations, we're very focused on the presence or absence of the hazardous substances in your product, and also the recyclability of your product. As this whole space has evolved with the overarching climate change, the issues with trade, etc., the regulations have grown in other sectors as well with respect to batteries, packaging, product safety, and so on. How do we address these challenges? So here I would like to talk a little bit about iPoint compliance to address these regulations and these demands by measuring the data and helping you manage against these regulations. Next slide, please. So with iPoint compliance, we are enabling supply chain transparency. This is a key element to for every company or every manufacturer out there who's producing a product to understand what is in their supply chain, to collect that data up the supply chain and aggregate it. We all know in different industries, the size of the supply chain can vary, and the volume of data with the growth in regulations and also with new products coming out in the market is exponentially growing. So efficient data management is the key. So with iPoint compliance, we enable efficient data management. Why are we collecting this data? Supply chain data, enormous amount of bill of material data to enable materials compliance, to perform analysis, and also reply to your legal entities and respond to the demand from your customers with respect to compliance. And ultimately, we are all working towards having a positive impact on the environment to make some changes with our products, with our processes, to reduce the impact on the climate change, and so on. Next slide, please. So we will start with taking a look at knowing your product. As Mark already earlier mentioned, we want to emphasize, knowing what is in your product. We have taken these various flood of regulations, the global regulatory landscape, the products and the supply chain, and boiled it down to three fundamental areas. The first being knowing your product. Know the design of your product, the structure of your product, manage the composition of your product, and analyze the evidences that you've collected from your supply chain. So this, with respect to knowing your product, that is your first building block, if you will, to be able to analyze the compliance impact as well as your impact on the environment. Next slide, please. The second building block is knowing your supplier, knowing your supply chain, because once you know what product you're making, what the structure of your product is, the next question is, okay, where do I get the data for everything within my product? So inquiring your supply chain to collect the data, not only focused on compliance, but also focused on various other aspects with our solutions. Within iPoint Compliance, we enable you to reach out to your supply chain through various tools and technologies that are available, some that are used by iPoint or built by iPoint, and some others that are built by third-party providers, like the IMDS system, which you will hear a little bit more from James later today's presentation. So knowing your supply chain and reaching out to your supply chain to collect the data with respect to compliance, to collect and validate the composition data, the statements of conformity, as well as going beyond compliance, collecting, survey questionnaires or collecting policy statements and so on from your supply chain. So the second building block here, to summarize, we focus on knowing your supplier. And next slide, please. Finally, why are we doing, knowing our products, trying to understand our supply chain, to know our impact, to enable and ensure the compliance of our products that are placed in the market, and to also evaluate the social impact from your supply chain, as well as the economic impact to your organization based on the products that you're producing, as well as the supply chain that you're interacting with. Focusing externally, you're focused on the complying to the regulations, to your customer-specific needs. Looking at externally again, you're looking at the social impact of your organization, of your products within the market, impacting the climate change and so on. And internally speaking, how are your products and your supply chain impacting your organization, your economic growth, and so on. So understanding your impact is another, the third building block, or I suppose the result of collecting or knowing your supply chain and knowing your product. Next slide, please. So again, just to reiterate the CARE principle, we have aligned all of the products in our suite, including iPoint Compliance, based on this CARE principle: collect, analyze, report, and evolve. Let's take a closer look. Next slide, please. With collect, with the iPoint Compliance tool, you're able to inquire information by requesting your suppliers for various types of information, full material disclosures, compliance statements, several questionnaires against industry standards, integration with third-party tools like IMDS, IHS Capsule Connector, etc. With iPoint Compliance, you're able to track your requests, set due dates, send reminders, manage escalations, follow up with your suppliers to efficiently collect the data and to optimize that whole process, enabling the suppliers to use the various tools and technologies that are out there to submit the data to have that process as automated and as efficient as possible. Validation of the supplier responses is a very key aspect that is enabled in iPoint Compliance, because you, of course, do not want to accept the data that you receive at face value. You need to do your due diligence to be able to review and evaluate the data that you are receiving. And with iPoint Compliance, there are various functions that in rules and functionality that is available that will allow you to automate as much of the validation directly at the point where the supplier is entering the data, as well as after receiving the data from the supplier, to help you make your decision to accept or reject the response. Visualize the status of your employees. and assign the validated responses to your product and material information. Next slide, please. So once you have collected all the data, the next aspect is analyze. Analyze against the survey results, analyze against the various regulatory rules and requirements that are out there to ensure are your products and is the data that you've collected up to par. Identify any substitution and any timelines. Are there any components that needs to be replaced due to any substance restrictions? Aggregate the data for various types of analysis, like triple R codes for your product, or for reach analysis and reporting. You need to aggregate the data and visualize the data. And we will take a look at closer look at some examples. In standardizing customer-specific, dashboards, how to best visualize the data in a meaningful way that can benefit your organization. Next slide, please. Report. So ultimately, until the last few years, everything was driven by regulatory needs. We are still driven by regulatory needs, but where you have government entities expecting certain declarations about your products, where you have also consumers now in the more recent past expecting information or disclosure about your products, to understand what is contained in this product, is it safe, is it compliant to certain regulations, etc. So in order to report, the ability to aggregate all of this data with and exchanging the data with various systems is important. The ability to reuse the data, to be able to, especially when you are submitting data to your customers, if you are lower in the supply chain and not at the OEM level, there is a lot of pressure and push for quality data again and again from various OEMs, various other tier companies within the supply chain. So the ability to reuse and resubmit the data without having to key in the information again and again is a key element that iPoint compliance enables. The preparation of standard reports like ROS and REACH letters, depending on which industry you are in, to be able to easily and quickly generate these reports and submit them is something that iPoint compliance enables as well. And managing and monitoring the status of how your customers have accepted or rejected your responses, as well as tracking the submissions to government entities, is enabled within the tool. Next slide, please. Here is a standard workflow that covers the collect, analyze, report, and report aspect. So you're collecting your bill of materials, your parts, your suppliers, your supplier contacts, etc., and entering it into the iPoint system. This could be done via integration to your internal systems, or it could be managed directly within the application. The iPoint compliance allows you to perform the gap analysis tied to the content data providers like IMDS, IHS CAPS-U, to name a few. It helps you identify where you're missing data to then reach out to your suppliers, perform escalations. There are communication tools that are available in the compliance solution, and also evaluate the responses that you've received via IMDS, IPC files, compliance certificate of compliance, safety data sheet, etc., to then make your decision to approve the data. And finally, roll up and aggregate all of this data to generate the various reports and perform analysis, and the cycle continues. Next slide, please. Here is a quick snapshot of how iPoint compliance integrates with various systems. The key elements are like the integrations to the PLM system, SDS management for toxicology and safe use, content providers like IMDS and CAMDS and IHS CAPS-U, allows you for recyclability calculation with other iPoint tools, integrated content databases, material databases, also access to 40 plus regulated as well as customer specific rule groups. With iPoint compliance, we also allow you to leverage our material compliance solution in our cloud-based Sustain Hub platform, where your suppliers could go in and enter responses to your inquiries free of charge. Next slide, please. So now that I have focused on collect, analyze, and report, the more recent area is on the evolve. How do you improve your compliance status? Where can you find benefits? How can you evolve as an organization, evolve your products, evolve, and make better decisions to, have a sustainable product and a sustainable company? So with the evolve aspect, we have various tools within the iPoint compliance to help you find opportunities to optimize your process, to leverage the data beyond compliance, to reduce toxicity level, for instance, and identify recyclable candidates, and so on. Next slide, please. So again, to do a quick recap here, why the evolution is very important to ensure compliance globally. Next slide, please. Here's a quick snapshot, and this is in no ways representing the complete list that is out there, but gives you a perspective of all the different regulations that are being driven in various regions around the world, in EU, Asia Pacific, global regulations like initiatives like Stockholm, LCA, analysis, GHS, South America, and various North America-driven regulatory initiatives that are going on. So in order to comply to these various regulations globally, simply collecting and analyzing and reporting is not sufficient. We have to think from an evolution perspective, from improving the process to make, not looking at compliance as a, in a rare view, but looking ahead for compliance, making sure that you are able to produce your product and sell it in the various locations globally. So in order to support this evolution in your organization and your product, we have I have here some examples of some tools that are available within the iPoint compliance, above and beyond the collect, analyze, and report aspect. Next slide, please. To help you match strategy with operations. Next slide, please. We have the iPoint compliance dashboard. So this is our light user interface of the iPoint compliance solution that allows you to basically at a glance monitor what are the regulations that are impacting you today and several years in the future. Next slide, please. With the iPoint compliance, to support your evolution of your products and your organization, we have various management analytics that allow you to monitor at a glance, what is the status of your parts and products that are produced in various parts of your organization. Focus on where are you missing data, where are you collecting data, where are your regulatory impacts. So here is an example of our management analytics dashboard that within iPoint compliance that allows you to make these strategic decisions that allows you to use the information that you have collected, because of the regulatory needs to prepare yourselves and your products for the future and for the future emerging regulations. Next slide, please. Here is another example of a management dashboard where you are able to monitor the statistics that impact your various regulations. So if first identify the regulations that impact your company, identify the issues and risks to drive your strategy. Next slide, please. making better decisions. So from a strategic perspective, yes, using the KPIs and the dashboard statistics, you can see trends and issues. So that is at a macro level. But at a micro level, how can we enable you to make better decisions? With iPoint compliance, we, next slide please. We are allowing you to make better decisions earlier in the design process. If you look at material engineering, material selection, component engineering, bill of materials engineering, and simulation, in this cycle, several times, it is only after the design has been frozen that the data for compliance is collected and it is aggregated and rolled out. However, with iPoint compliance, in order to support, to involve your products and company, we have various tools to help your teams, your engineering teams, make better decisions early in the design process and not at a later date where the change can be very expensive. Next slide, please. So beyond your compliance engineers, allowing your design engineers, material engineers, etc., to be able to search for products, parts for which you've already collected data to see where where you have composition information, to leverage the compliance calculation and status of existing data to make better decisions, to pick the right parts in the design process itself. Is one of the key components of enabling you to make these decisions with iPoint compliance. So this is a snapshot of our engineering dashboard where your engineers are able to search and look up the components and quickly visualize the status. They do not have to be compliance experts. They do not have to understand REACH, ROS, ESD, but they can leverage a quick summary of calculation to make their decisions in their design process. Next slide, please. Here's just another example of the output of the engineering part lookup and the engineering dashboard that we have. Next slide, please. So again, in this approach to enable compliance and to make better decisions early in the process and not after the fact, after the design is complete, here I would just like to shortly announce a strategic partnership with Hexagon MSC software, where we are enabling responsible design to enable your material designers as well as design engineers to evaluate the compliance issues and identify potential risks of compliance at the design phase to be able to make better decisions. So to summarize, next slide please, the benefits of iPoint compliance. iPoint compliance enables you to manage and ensure the compliance of your products globally, tracking global regulations, save time and effort by leveraging various automated options that are available and integrating your iPoint compliance within your business process, to match your strategy with your operations by leveraging our management dashboard within the iPoint compliance, and to improve your supply chain integration and risk management by leveraging your our tools with the supplier dashboard, as well as connections to systems like IMDS, Sustain Hub, IHS CAT2, and so on, as well as finally to make better decisions by doing responsible design, using iPoint compliance to make better design decisions early in the design process. So with that, I would like to conclude my section of the introduction of the iPoint compliance solution to you all. Thank you for your time. I would like to then, okay.
Wonderful, thank you. So I really appreciate it. Just want to remind everybody, thank you for the questions coming in. We've got some really good ones. Roger asking about the SCIP database. I think that that's important development we can all share. and talk about how we'll be handling that. Some questions from Amy about how we're going to be handling some new regulations. So really good questions coming in. Please continue to submit those. We'll take those during the question and answer session. At this point, I do want to go ahead and move to our third and final, I guess, presentation here before we move to Q&A, and by far our most important. So James, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, sir.
Wonderful, James. Thank you so much for joining. So James Tu, Senior Manager from Toyota North America, talking about his, if you will, compliance adventure, and a few slides here from James. So James, let me turn it over to you. Just a courtesy, next slide will be good, and we'll move throughout your deck. Thank you again for joining us today. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time today. So hello, everybody. My name is James Tu from Toyota North America, Senior Manager in the Information Systems. So I'm going to talk about the Avenger system today, the genesis of Avenger, the benefits of the system to our chemicals management office in Toyota Motor North America, our culture in North America, and also our plan to do current and future system integration going forward. Next slide, please. So before the Avenger system, basically we had a number of different technologies we were using to manage chemicals compliance, including Excel spreadsheets, Access databases, and you name it, right? So it was a very complex operation. It was deemed rather inefficient and also ineffective. So with the increasing regulatory changes, we were facing increasing pressure to do more with less to support and Toyota's operation. So hence came Avenger. Avenger is our in-house system that we have developed with iPoint together, and it's been a great partnership so far with iPoint, and so thank you all to the iPoint team. We use the system to help us manage our IMDS IMDS activities for Toyota North America internally. So we have basically three sets of users. One, the first column to the left is the Chemicals Management Office. Those are our power users. They basically create the vehicle parts list. They store all the Toyota IMDS information. They do the compliance checks and reports. They also perform analysis, manage our supplier contacts, and also manage all the IMDS requests to and from the suppliers as well. We also have built an internal portal with iPoint's help that's open to the Toyota internal stakeholders with our designers, quality engineers, and so forth. It is a web-based dashboard, and it is a read-only database. So we can use that to ensure open communication, also effective communication of different statuses to our internal stakeholders for the various vehicle programs that we're here to manage. And lastly, we also use this to ensure our communication with our suppliers. And it is also done with iPoint's help. And so with this has really helped us tremendously in terms of transparency, visibility, and also status updates with our supplier community in North America. So ultimately, with this solution, we are now able to offer our stakeholders from the CMO, the designers and quality engineers, and the suppliers a one-stop shopping experience for all the Toyota internal compliance evidence verification for chemicals management in North America. So next slide, please. So here's our IMDS process. As you can see here, any new parts, any data requests or any kind of part changes, we use the Avenger application to send the request to our suppliers. They confirm the request and they check and update the IMDS status. We have the designers and quality people also use this information to provide the evidence upon a certain schedule that we have. And ultimately, we do this against our IMDS verification using this Avenger system to provide statuses in the portal so we can have open communication to our community. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the genesis of our project. So as I mentioned, I support the legal division, corporate compliance, product compliance, government affairs, and also corporate communications for Toyota North America. So I was first introduced to the product compliance area about, I would say, 2.5, 3 years ago or so. So that's when I first met iPoint in our meeting, and we quickly identified the issue. And by Q4, we identified iPoint as a leader in this space, and we developed a high-level project approach and architecture Then we worked with iPoint to do a very high-level proof of concept, and that was done in the first quarter of 2017. And from the proof of concept, we were able to basically prepare a business case to secure funding for the project. And we delivered the project from Q2 through the end of Q4 of 2017. It took us about 9 months and to deliver all the core features. And that was all done via our agile methodology. That's basically we're doing 2-week sprints, and we deliver all the key features. As I mentioned before, the portal for the suppliers and the engineering folks. We import all the bill of materials. We also have integrated some internal systems with our Toyota North America operations as well. And from there, we went on to deliver additional enhancements, including single sign-on, daily file checking, and other integration with TMC data sources, and so forth. So it's been a successful journey, and we have really used the system extensively to help us support our North American vehicle programs successfully. So next slide, please. So here's a copy of the dashboard. As Sushma and Mark were mentioning, iPoint really offers us great capabilities and great functionalities in terms of making everything very visually appealing, and also very attractive, and also very effective in terms of communicating statuses. So you can see from the suppliers, they can see what's being reported, what's being rejected, what's been accepted, and what hasn't been reported. So we can have a kind of an open one portal experience for all the users. Next slide, please. So some of the key benefits of this is we have now a single source of a complete vehicle parts list. And we work with iPoint, who really helped us on the front end of the system, the data collection, analysis, and reporting. My team was able to build some of the internal integration in terms of architecture and other things. One of the key things to mention here is we took the time in working with iPoint to really define the data structure, the data schema. We really built a very strong data lake at Toyota, which we were able to marry that with the iPoint system to enable a fast and easy integration going forward. And so this includes all the information from the direct materials, accessories, and so forth. So this also helped us for the very first time to do a full vehicle compliance check much more effectively, also efficiently. We also have now automated IMDS data requests to suppliers, doing the BOM upload, and also and other operations. And as I mentioned before, this really helped us with the improved communications. Suppliers can see all the IMDS requests in the portal. They can proactively report accepted parts, so we can see what's outstanding. We can also able to, with iPoint's help, export different graphs and data and parts requests, so we can use that to inform our management. And also, they only have to supply this information only one time. In the past, as I mentioned, since we had different Excel databases and Excel spreadsheets, access databases, using a lot of things were actually done via email, so it was becoming very cumbersome, also very hard to manage. So this really helped us achieve that objective as well. And lastly, with the engineering dashboard, our designers, quality people can also see the data much more effectively for evidence based on our Toyota standard, and also reduce burden on the suppliers. And so it's, overall, it's been a great win for Toyota in this project. So next slide, please. So I just want to take a point to mention about Toyota culture. The way I think one reason for our success is definitely we have a very strong partnership with iPoint. We have in our agile structure, we do the 2-week sprints. We also have a set of a steering committee structure where the iPoint leadership team will participate with us together to provide a joint updates to our project sponsors and stakeholders. Another way is really our culture on continuous improvement. In Toyota, we have really 2 pillars that we focus on. One is we call the Kaizen. That simply means continuous improvement. So that means we work with our vendors as partners, and in a very close partnership to closely identify issues, addressing the root cause, and mitigate the risk. Because we fully understand any complex technology projects, there's always going to be issues that nobody can fully anticipate. But the thing is, when those things occur, we try not to place blame. Instead, we work with our partners to really look at the issues, work together to troubleshoot, identify the root cause, so we can work together to implement the correct countermeasures to make sure that the same thing, the same events, the same incidents do not happen again down the road. And so that really comes from our respect for people. That's our second pillar in our culture. And part of this project is also we were switching at Toyota from a waterfall methodology to the agile methodology. So we were focused on basically, before we were focused on doing documentation over delivering working software. But in the agile way, we were very, very focused on working with iPoint to define our releases, deliver value incrementally. And through our steering committee meetings, we were able to demonstrate value to our sponsors to secure funding going forward. And with that kind of mindset, we delivered the key functionalities within 9 months of the project, as I mentioned previously. And then before waterfall, as you can all imagine, we have all seen projects that's taking longer to deliver, to realize value. With agile, we were able to show value incrementally, deliver value, prove, and make course adjustments as needed going forward, so we can deliver the values very, very quickly to support the company. And then also we do the daily Scrum meetings. So instead of tracking using the Gantt charts and all those project meetings, which are very, very cumbersome, we use a lot of our Jira and agile tools, such as Jira, Confluence, and other things. So we have Scrum meetings and so forth. So we can all see the entire team, business and IS combined, can see the status as to how things are progressing. And then the teams was really in agile way, working very closely together, very strong communications as one team. So hence we had the success in the project. So next slide, please. So if you can press, keep going, press the next button. You can see the agile structure. We have, keep going, please. Perfect, thank you. So we set up the Avenger project team. You can see we have a Scrum Master and who is responsible to make sure that the Scrum team lives by the values of the agile process. And the Scrum Master was also a coach that he was able to coach both the business and IS stakeholders to behave in the agile way, very collaborative and very, very supportive of each other. And we also went through the agile Buddha process as a team together. So business and IS can learn about the agile methodology, all the different ways of working in agile. So with the agile team, that's myself on the IT side, working with business people and our other IS resources, and all of us working on the agile team together, serving our roles and responsibilities to support the team to make sure we have great team success. We have also a product owner that's from the business. Then she has responsibility to set the product backlog, to set the priority, to make sure we have the proper focus on delivering the value for the company. And as I mentioned before, we have different meetings set up, and in terms of sprint meetings, since we do 2-week sprints, we do the sprint planning and refinements every 2 weeks. And every sprint that we have is 2-week in duration. We have the Scrum calls. Instead of doing that daily, we do that twice per week. And that's one thing I want to mention, that the agile way is really meant to be something that's very flexible. So you can accommodate based on your project requirements, also specific company culture. So instead of doing daily Scrum meetings, since the team was dispersed in Michigan, Germany, and other locations, we're doing Scrum calls twice a week, so we can all get online and do quickly identify the impediments, so we can focus on those issues to deliver value quickly. Then we also do the sprint review and retrospective every 2 weeks to learn from the past sprint to help us in the planning for the next releases. And as I mentioned before, we do have a joint IS TM Toyota iPoint meetings in terms of technical meetings, status calls, and also we have our steering committee meetings that we have set up to update with iPoint jointly, to update our leadership from both the business and IT side on the success of this project. And I think all these things combined have proven to be foundational in our success in our journey with iPoint on this project. So next slide, please. So here you can see it's very easy to understand. Instead of looking at the Gantt charts, you can quickly see the different releases, the different schedule, and you can see we have 2-week sprints along the way. And you can see what's going to be delivered, what's being deployed with no issues, what's not working, and so forth. So the team can quickly focus on what we need to deliver for the company. Next slide, please. So here's just some of the appendix, and myself again. I worked at Toyota. I've been here for 17 years. I support legal, product compliance, and other divisions. And Mo and I are partners in IS, and he is our Scrum Master. And ultimately, it's been a great journey with iPoint. And iPoint, I think they really provide us a great product, great partnership, great focus, and it's been a great success. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. Thank you, Sushma. Really appreciate both of you joining here today and providing these presentations. I'd like to go ahead and use the last 5 or 10 minutes here today for some Q&A. Please, again, for those of you that have some questions for either speaker, go ahead and type those into the question box. We'll just take a few minutes here. We'll wrap up our event, get you to your next meeting on time. We had lots of questions, including several from Carl, but I think one of Carl's favorite questions was maybe something that several people were wondering is, James, can you tell us a little bit how you got the name Avenger? That was a question we got from a couple people here.
Yes, great question. So we want to have fun while working in the compliance world, right? So when we first met with iPoint, we were having a lot of internal conversations. So what could be something that's really interesting and fun for the project code name? So back then we had the movie Avenger that came out from the Marvel series, and also there's a movie back in a long time ago, something called the Toxic Avenger. So we're thinking that Avenger is really meant to stand for justice, doing things right, overcoming all the obstacles that we have in the world today to try to provide value. So hence Avenger was selected as our project code name.
I remember when that went from a code word to the actual name of the project. So that was fantastic. Thank you. Ben is also asking, what advice would you have for companies who are challenged to get support from their IT for these types of compliance programs? Any advice you might have for folks that may be struggling to get support from IT?
Yes, sir. So what I wouldn't say advice, but here's a couple of things I have done. Is I really took the time to include my IT executive sponsor to have a face-to-face meeting with my business sponsor so they can understand the business operation, the risks that we're facing as a company in the compliance world, right? From there, I work with my business customers and the iPoint very, very closely together. We build a backlog and we really focus on prioritizing our efforts on the most, I guess, the best win for the company, right? And from there, we focus on delivering 1 or 2 key projects. And by having that close engagement, open communication to show success early and quickly, and then also with a strong business sponsorship and support, we're able to continue to secure funding for our projects, not just in the chemicals area, but also in my other portfolios as well. So I think those are some of the things I have done. And I think the key is really to try to blend business and IT as much as we can, and knowing that executives are all super busy, but really want to make sure they see the value of this investment, and working with the partners such as iPoint to deliver quickly, and then through those communications and demonstrations of what we have been delivering incrementally, they can see the value and they will support us continuously going forward. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, James. One more question, couple questions here. Sushma, I've got one for you coming up too. James, one more for you. Hong is asking, let's see here. Can you talk about how you rolled out the supplier dashboard? Are the suppliers able to use this regularly?
Yes. So great question. So on that, we really, as a project team, we had a change management consultant that was focused on communications, training, and also change management. So we prepared a set of change management materials with a very focused delivery of the message to the supplier community. Basically, through our past surveys that we have done, we have heard their concerns and their feedback. And as a company, we are making this investment to make their lives easier, right? So we really focus on what's in it for them. And from there, we did some of the roadshows with the key suppliers to get their buy-in. We did some quick POC, proof of concepts, also quick pilots to fine-tune our process. Eventually, it was rolled out in phases to the number of suppliers based on the different vehicle programs. And I think kind of by applying that kind of cadence and structured approach, we're able to get their buy-in, answer their questions, and make it a really usable product for them as well.
Thank you. Sushma, one for you. Got this question from 2 or 3 people. I think Roger was the first to ask, but does iPoint have plans to connect to the upcoming SCIP databases? I think generally the aggregated question I'm seeing from several different people here.
Yes, we do. We are working very closely at the moment with the folks who are orchestrating the SCIP database right now to understand the requirements, what can we do, how can we integrate, and yes, so we are in a very deep dive exploratory phase at the moment with the SCIP database, and it is definitely very much part of our candidate roadmap item at the moment. And I think there's a lot of things that are not SCIP. There's a lot of debate going on as well. So as it evolves, but we have our subject matter experts participating in all the key, meetings and discussions on this topic. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. As I promised, we want to give everyone a few minutes. I know that today's meeting culture, we've got to move from one meeting to the next. I apologize. We've got some great questions. Amy's asking about how people get data outside of the portal. Eva was asking about software. How do we keep that up to date on regulations? That do you have to do that as a customer? Do we do that as iPoint? We do that as iPoint. A really good question from Leah about value in connecting to ERP or PLM systems she mentioned. Another one from Matt about linear supply chains and how we deal with nonlinear. I think those are wonderful questions, and some of those I think we can hopefully take offline and answer. But again, I promised everyone to get out on time, and we'll do that. First of all, James, any closing thoughts from you?
Yes, thank you, Mark. I want to thank you all for your time today, and my apologies for being late this morning. We had a fire drill in the company, hence I was a little late. I was a bit unplanned. Sorry about that. I'm glad to be here, and I hope my information was helpful. I just want to say that it's been a great journey with iPoint, and we look forward to continuing working with iPoint to deliver additional enhancements and products for Toyota going forward. But thank you for your time. Thanks.
James, we really appreciate you joining. Wonderful presentation, and we do appreciate our partnership, of course, with you and the entire Toyota team. Sushma, any closing thoughts from you as well?
No, just wanted to thank everyone for your time and your patience. I apologize. I saw some notes about some audio issues coming from my end. We will definitely try to look at it and make some improvements for our next session. Again, thank you all for your patience and making the time to come today.
Thank you, Sushma. Okay, everyone, thanks again, both James, Sushma, and everyone else for attending. We'll be sending out a link with the recording of today's event over the next couple of days for anyone who registered or attended, in case you've missed any part of the presentation or want to share this with colleagues. So with that said, I'd like to once and finally thank everyone again for joining. We really appreciate you spending the last hour with us. Thanks again to our speakers and all of our organizers for today's event. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.